our panel for the morning. And I want to welcome our four panelists. First is Candace Caruso. Candace is the Senior Vice President and the Director of Government Guaranteed Lending from Wisvis Bank. Hi, Candace.
Hello, how are you this morning? Thank you for having me.
I'm doing great. And then Ami Kassar, the CEO of Multi-Funding. Hey, Ami.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me today.
Thanks for being here. And then Mitch Gerstein, the Senior Tax Advisor at Isdiner & Company. Mitch, good to see you.
Yes. Good morning, Jeff. Thanks. Looking forward to our conversation.
Okay. And then Marla Hamilton, Vice President of Marketing and Business Development at the Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation, better known as PIDC. And she's, of course, I joked with her earlier, in the space shuttle today. She's broadcasting from the moon. You're the best background, Marla. I love that.
Oh, man. Good morning, Jeff and everyone. Thank you for inviting us to be a part of today's program. What I said is so many things are happening on Earth. I decided to take a trip.
Yeah, I think a bunch of people might want to join you. They've known you were going. So we heard what Steve had to say about what's been going on with the SBA, and I just wanted to get everyone's reaction, just in general. We're going to do a little forward-thinking discussion here, but I do want to start with the now. We're 2 weeks into SBA, and I'm just into PPP, and as round two. How has it gone? Marla, let's start with you, because CDFI's had a head start for a week. How was it different this time? Was it different for you and your partners and the small businesses that you serve?
Well, first, Jeff, I have to give a huge thank you to the SBA. We began coordinating with the SBA before the Christmas holidays. We anticipated that the bill would get signed, the act would get signed, and we wanted to at least be ready to offer information to our clients and the general marketplace. And so we coordinated with the Eastern Pennsylvania District Office right there in King of Prussia. Shout out to Sonia Smith and Kimberly Stout, who have responded and partnered with PIDC for several, ever since the first round of PPP. What we found is people needed information, number one. And not only did they need information, but they needed technical support. And that is what I think has been one of the greatest challenges with the CDFI community. We are not traditional lenders, so we tend to have smaller staffs, and those staffs spent a lot of time not just processing applications, but and not just reviewing applications, but we found that a lot of small businesses, particularly those targeted markets that were not able to access.
Hold on 1 second, Marla.
PPP.
Can you hold on 1 second? Anyone who's on, could you put yourself on mute if you're not speaking? And the panelists, that goes for you as well, because we're getting a lot of feedback there. So that's better. So Marla, continue. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So for those businesses, those underserved businesses that had challenges in 2020 with the first round, what we found is they needed a lot of hand-holding, not necessarily in uploading documents, but even preparing the documents. So small businesses, and it tends to the micro businesses that needed the help and that everyone acknowledges in hindsight needed so much support, they still need the support. And many of the CDFIs, if not all of the CDFIs, were absolutely overwhelmed with the number of companies that were coming that was just greater than their ability to service. which is how we've ended up now working with some of the fintechs that have agreed to do the hand-holding that these businesses need. And we continue to try to identify bookkeepers, accountants that can literally sit with a business owner and help them compile and put together a financial statement. So once you have the financial statement complete, it's easy to upload that information to portals, but it is absolutely a time-consuming process for those very small businesses that need so much support.
Okay. I mean, what have your impressions been of the first few weeks here? How has it been? What do you see out there? What do you hear from all your businesses that you deal with?
First of all, thanks to everyone at the SBA, and Marla, thanks to all the work you're doing with the CDFI community. It's a Herculean task. And I think the issue with financial literacy and assistance in the underserved communities for small businesses was a problem before the pandemic, and it's being intensified now. And a lot of time and effort and resources have to be put into that. That being said, what's interesting about the overall PPP is that, appropriately so, there are tougher standards to get it now. It was last time, it was the Wild Wild West, and everyone wasn't sure the world was going to end, and almost every business I knew took the money. There was so much uncertainty. And now with the 25% criteria, many businesses aren't eligible for it. And many of the banks that we're speaking to are running at around 30% of their capacity of what they were running at around this time last year, which is sort of consistent with what the data shows. And so I just think in terms of the economic recovery, PPP is important. PPP is serving a segment of the businesses that are still badly hit and they need and deserve the support. But at the same time, there are many other millions of businesses that have managed to stay about flat or actually grow during the pandemic. And that's where a lot of the job growth is going to come from. And we need to make sure that we are educating them about all the benefits of SBA lending in the Act, and making sure that they also have the liquidity to grow, hire, and expand.
Okay. And Candace, how has it been for you from the lender side this time around? What are you seeing out there from the type of businesses that are applying, and how is it different? And just also your dealings with the SBA and the new E-Tran system and all that.
So I would share that the targeted approach in helping the hardest hit businesses really aligns with what we're experiencing as far as demand. So restaurants, obviously, our restaurant clientele, particularly ones that, were not necessarily in quick service or pizza restaurants that were able to sustain on a delivery model, ones that have that sit-down model, they're definitely the ones that we see most applying, especially taking advantage of the enhanced rules for the restaurant and hospitality space. We also have found that other businesses that require a high level of personal interaction, whether they be in the salon care or personal care industries, they are also in need and applying for the program as well with this round, all kind of very consistent with kind of what we've seen in the media as far as the toughest hit businesses. I would share that for our clientele, we were able to reach many of our customers. So a lot of the initial loans we're seeing are draw twos, just based on the interest. However, we are outreaching out there in the community, trying to provide education for individuals that may not have had the banking relationship or the sophistication around having all their financials in good order, to make sure that no business is left unserved. I think that's critically important. I also think that what Ami had mentioned, which is SBA has PPP, which is a bridge for the hardest and toughest hit businesses and allowing them to sustain their employees as well. But also the SBA has enhanced many programs for 7A and Express for the businesses that maybe have been able to weather the storm or have been able to be creative and agile. And those tools are critically important economically for us to fully recover. This is an important bridge to get stabilization. There's subsidy payments that the SBA has put out there. And depending on eligibility, that will further help some of these small businesses to sustain that have already gotten SBA loans. But also if you are in need of an SBA loan, with the enhanced guarantees to encourage lenders to continue lending so they don't have the fear of lending, also still following prudent underwriting standards. And then in addition to that, encouraging the business owner to really continue to grow through guarantee fee waivers, in addition to subsidy payments as long as the funding is available, are really out there to further stabilize and stimulate the economy.
Have you had problems, Candace? WSFS had problems with the new, I don't think they have a name for the new E-Tran yet. And they haven't named it. They haven't given it christened it with a name yet, but obviously you've heard about that, the letter that was written and all that.
Yes.
What's the sense of all that? Can you tell us is that slowing things down in any way?
Well, there is, of course, more upfront due diligence with this round. So one, in verification that you've had the 25% reduction. So there's more time that lending institutions are putting into validation of that, checking the documentation, making sure that all the borrower certifications are complete. Now, when we do push to the SBA, there are certain instances or codes that we're throwing up as red flags, which have been addressed, and the SBA had an educational session actually earlier this week to help make sure that that was remedied and that would not delay the funding. The other piece is that I don't think that there's the same concern around the speed of the funding running out, but I think that small businesses, obviously, that have been hardest hit, have a need for funding now. So the demands of the program might be a little bit different, but there is more due diligence in this process up front. So we are trying to set expectations with our customers and letting them know that it's not going to mirror the same process you experienced in PPP 1.0, that 2.0 is intentionally set up different. The SBA is also doing LexisNexis, SAM.gov checks, making sure that you're an eligible borrower upfront as well. So you're not going to get immediate gratification and getting an authorization like you did in round one. It's just a different process, and not to have concern around that we will continue to update you. So I think communication is critically important as we work through this. Also, as Steve had mentioned, this is a new tech platform and worked really well with forgiveness thus far. So we've had really great experience with the same platform for forgiveness. I do think that longer term, it will be a more efficient and stable environment, but it is truly the first week. Last week was the first week it had any substantial volume. So there were a lot of learnings, and they're getting fixed and remedied, and it seems very quickly.
Okay. Thanks, Candace. Mitch, I have a tax question for you. So obviously you and I have been talking for months about the IRS's decision where this program was not tax deductible, the items in the program, and now it's been reversed. Congress reversed the IRS's decision made last year that sort of decreed that normally tax deductible items would no longer be deductible if they were paid with PPP funds. So I'm wondering, as we get into tax season, which is right around the corner, how big is that going to be this year for small businesses that obviously they need all the help they can get?
Yes, so that's exactly right. And, it made it very difficult at the end of the year to do tax planning when we knew that the CARES Act didn't really necessarily provide the way that IRS had ruled, where the expenses that were being forgiven would not be tax deductible. So that really created, in some respects, this phantom income and that there was going to be circumstances where there was taxes. I just want to, and I'll continue on, but I just want to, before I forget, I just want to go back just a couple things that were already discussed. You know, one of the things right now of slowing down the process that was discussed with Steve and recently with Candace is that you know, these codes that that were creating some problems, these error codes. You know, one of the things that we are hearing is that, you know, the first draw is that loan is still being worked through for forgiveness. And so if it's being held up for a review, for whatever the reasons are, the second draw can't get into the system. So as Candace mentioned, SBA released a bunch of information earlier this week to how to address that, because they're really trying to get those loans. So I suspect that there's a backlog of these second draw loans. And the other part of that is, you know, and maybe we'll probably talk more about this, is that the second draw loans have the representation that's current economic uncertainty makes this loan request necessary to support the ongoing operations of this applicant. With a lot of clients, second quarter, they qualified for the 25%, but they're doing okay, you know, and they figured out the remote and, you know, maybe the work was delayed. And so now they're sort of struggling. Do I want to go ahead and you know, submit and take potentially money away from someone that really needs it? So going back to the tax piece of it, it's a complete relief because we were telling our clients, you know, who are just, you know, at the top of the mountain, and we're trying to hold them off from jumping over because they're going to owe all these taxes. Don't worry about it. We believe it's going to be resolved. And even if it gets resolved in 2021, it will be retroactive. We won't follow your return. We have until April 15th to get it resolved. That's because that's really when you'll have to make the, you know, large tax payment. So they're happy. In effect, it's actually sort of, you know, it allows them to take those taxes and redeploy it, whether it's for their working capital or just, you know, putting it back into the business and you know, giving them more time to help them during the recovery during this pandemic.
And Ami, I want to go back to you real quick. What do you obviously deal with small businesses on the daily, trying to help them get access to capital. That's really what you do, and at multi-funding. And I'm wondering, from your sense, what are they telling you right now in terms of their biggest fears? I mean, I've heard, for example, Candace's boss, Roger Levinson, told me last month that if the first round of PPP last year was sort of a bridge that would allow companies to sort of figure, like Mitch was just talking about, figuring out remote, figuring out and recalibrating their businesses, giving them a little breathing room to do that. This is sort of like a bridge to the vaccine in a lot of ways. People are saying that. So what are you hearing from all the small businesses that you deal with about where they are right now, and what their fears, or maybe maybe they're feeling positive now about things with the vaccine starting to go in people's arms. But what are you hearing from people right now? What's the mood?
So again, I think it's always unwise to think about small businesses or businesses in just one bucket.
Okay.
And so the way I'm thinking about the small business world today, they sort of fit into three buckets. The one is the underserved, which is some of what Marla talked about. And, you know, I've interviewed a lot in the press lately, and people are saying, well, you know, the underserved or the Black or the Hispanics, they were put in the back of the line in the first round of PPP. Well, honestly, I think many of them never got in the line in the first place because they didn't even understand the program, or they were too afraid of it, or how to take advantage of it. And I think there has to be a Herculean effort, and Marla, I applaud you and I think the Biden administration is going to focus on it to help that community. The second group are those who are generally entitled for PPP, and that's where their focus should be now, getting the money. because this is survival money for them and they need it. And it's maybe you could argue it's months late, but it's there, so they need it and it's helpful for survival. But then you have that group, and there are millions of businesses that have done okay or thrived during these times. And what we need is to give them the confidence and an injection and willingness to go and invest and take risks and hire. The economy, some of the jobs from the industries that have been hit are going to move to different industries. I mean, there's just seismic shifts in consumer behavior. And if people are going to move, as an example, from workers in hotels to workers in e-commerce companies, as an example, we have to make sure that those e-commerce companies have the liquidity, the confidence to invest, and the banks willing to lend to them. And what the SBA has done with the tweaks to the program are really big. I think you can get all guarantee fees are waived, and you can get up to 6 months, $9,000 a month for up to 6 months of payments completely waived. So as an example, if someone would get a $350,000 SBA loan today, the savings to the borrower is somewhere in the tune of $31,000. And if you get a $5 million SBA today, the savings are like $184,000. And that can be used either for new investment or to recapitalize your balance sheet, to take debt and stretch it out and improve your cash flow. And we're actually launching a big campaign on Monday called Sba Ignite, where our goal will be to teach 1 million business owners and entrepreneurs across the country about the SBA, which we think is the biggest kept secret in the government, and specifically about these benefits. So hopefully business owners can learn, take advantage, be more willing to take risks, hire, and invest.
Marla, same question for you. What are the businesses that you're dealing with, which are a lot of the ones that have been the hardest hit? What are they telling you right now about where they are, and what their concerns are, and maybe what they're looking forward to right now?
So companies are, what we're hearing, they're still afraid because the drop in revenue has been so steep that companies are hanging on by a thread. And the reality is some of those businesses won't survive. And waiting, I don't hear so much about waiting for the pandemic, although that's helpful. So we are talking to businesses about preparing for savings, which sounds counterintuitive in this kind of environment. But when you are in survival mode, you have to hold on to every dime that you can get. And we are preparing businesses for a return to what they can expect to be normal revenue towards the mid or end of 2022, going into 2023. Because even with the vaccine, there will still be concerns about these variants, and it really has become psychological with people. So you can reopen all of the economy. It doesn't mean that there's going to be this rush of business that follows it. And so people are thinking about that pivot for a longer period of time than they really anticipated. But I do see that there have been three groups during this time. There are the larger businesses that have those existing relationships with traditional lenders. They were ready to go. Documents were ready, lenders were ready because they already had existing relationships. Then you had those that were ready with applications, but there were lenders who were not taking on new clients. And you've been very helpful in doing that research and letting the market know who's in and who's out for this round. And then you have those businesses that have documents that aren't ready at all and don't have a lender. And so I would hope that in future rounds, and of course, everyone is looking to the Biden administration, we would hope that there are some funds that are allocated for technical assistance, because that third group that doesn't have documents, they're the ones that are underserved. They are hesitant now because they don't even know how to put these documents together. So we would hope that, similar to what the state was able to do in its small business grant program and allocating dollars, we would hope that the future considers putting funds with the CDFIs specifically for technical assistance to sit down with businesses and help them through how to track their receipts, how to get that information into a financial statement, then have a financial statement that is ready to upload. Also, the other thing I think that is critical is there has to be funding for new hires, because the demand is overwhelming and the existing staff levels are woefully inadequate to accommodate the demand. You'll never be able to meet all of the demand, but it is virtually impossible to do it with whatever your current staffing levels are.
Gotcha. Just a reminder to everyone, if you have a question for one of our guests, or for all of our guests, please put that in the chat box there, and I'll make sure to get it out to them. So Candace, I want to go back to you real quick, and then to Mitch about this question. Is PPP funding enough to sustain small businesses beyond the 8 to 24 weeks coverage period here?
I would share that we don't know. We're not certain. It's going to depend on how quickly the vaccine is deployed, how not only how quickly it's deployed, but how many people are comfortable getting vaccinated. Also, beyond that, we are still learning about the vaccine and the efficacy of that. So all of those factors will drive some of that, depending on the industry. I would also share that one of the things, and kind of lining up with your prior question, is business owners need to pay attention to consumer behavior and kind of adapting to that consumer behavior. So if there are tools like tech that help a gym perform a class on Zoom as opposed to in person, and that's another avenue or channel for funds for them, that may help them supplement. So it's also leveraging those PPP funds and learning about your business and being agile around your business and pivoting to new opportunities that may present additional revenues or profits, to also keep your workers employed and to cover your overhead. So I would share that, we don't have complete clarity there, but I think that this is an important bridge and we're just not quite sure how large of a bridge we need to get there. And I think that congressionally, and then, of course, with the new cabinet, now in the White House, also there's a lot of support and awareness around, if there is a need for additional stimulus, that we're going to take action. We're going to support those small businesses. So I think that in itself should give everybody a high level of confidence that, the government is behind them, that financial institutions are behind them, that technical resource centers are available to them and behind them, that we're all here to help. We all have a vested interest in getting to the other side of this.
And Mitch, the same question for you about this coverage period. Is this funding going to be enough to get folks to through this?
Right. So to what Candace said about we just don't know is absolutely on point. When you have an opportunity to do 8, now you have an opportunity to pick any period between 8 and 24 weeks. It would seem to make sense to be able to get the largest amount of forgiveness is to choose the 24-week, because that will give you per employee, will give you somewhere in the area of $46,000 to spend per employee. And you also can choose to calculate the loan based on 2019, which may be a higher payroll period than 2020 and 2021. So you have all this money potentially that you're going to get in the form of a loan, and you want to turn it into a grant by having to spend this money. the good thing is, like I said, the longer you can stretch it, the more you will be able to use it for your workforce. But then they expanded it to additional expenses. And so one of the areas beyond the PPE expenses and is these operational payments. So that covers software, cloud computing, other human resources, accounting needs. So, it's going to give the company an opportunity to reevaluate where they are and, make those decisions about hiring and make the decisions about, because they're remote, technologically, what else do they have to do to remain competitive? What do they have to do? Can they afford to do it to move some of their business online? So there's an opportunity there. And I would also say, as part of all that, they probably need to come up with a plan that's a shorter outlook, maybe a 2-year plan, taking in consideration not just the PPP, but all the other programs that we're hearing about. The city came out with a program. The state just had a state bill that has $1 million potentially covering hospitality in some other areas. And so it's a lot to take in. This technical assistance that Marla had mentioned, I think that applies to almost every business right now, because they're really being forced to evaluate their current situation and making decisions that are going to really impact the future of the company. I've had a number of clients who have decided that this is it. I had one that was in healthcare that said it's going to take too long for us to recover, and we're going to. It's too much of an effort to put in, so we're done. And there's others that are looking at mergers, and some of the business lines. Merger and acquisitions has become a very hot area right now. And then what about all the real estate? So many of us are working remotely. It's great that some of these larger companies are using it for vaccination drive-bys, but what are we doing for the future of that? So there's just a lot of unknowns that are happening right now. Let me get back to you on the 8 to 24 week covered period, whether that's going to be enough. We're going to have to see how it goes.
I'll give you a call in 8 to 24 weeks. I want, since you're up on the, you sort of did my segue for me there.
Oh, good.
So I wanted to ask you, and I want to ask everyone about this. What does the new normal look like for small businesses after we get to as close to we can get to full vaccination, in terms of reinvention, innovation, consolidation, exit strategies? You mentioned some of those things. What do you think the new normal is going to look like?
Well, the new normal is going to look like a lot different than it did at the beginning of 2020, when we just had a really successful 2019 year and everyone was looking forward to all the growth opportunities. And so there has been this really long pause in some industries. The pause is just still insurmountable to figure out how they're going to go forward with it. I could talk about our firm, Isdaner, where, the majority, we're heading into tax season. It's here. You said we're heading into it. We're already in tax season. And it's going to be a full year this year of working remotely. And so, we've had to make dramatic changes of using technology and training those who weren't as tech savvy as others. And I'm working with all our clients at figuring out how to make sure that they feel comfortable with this new process. We're going to still be learning from that. Some of it's still trial and error. So the new normalcy is going to be changing often, and we continue to get new guidance. So we have to react. We have to be ready to react. And so, I think it's the way I would see it is it's a great opportunity to reevaluate your business and determine whether there are new revenue streams and determine whether what the future holds for them, because it really is putting a lot of businesses in this sort of pause area that they need to really think about. Because when you're busy, you don't think about this thing. Who has time to do that?
Marla, let's go to you on the same question. What do you see, your crystal ball, from the new normal for small businesses after post-vaccination?
I think as difficult as the pandemic has been, there are some real bright lights that have emerged from this. And just like Mitch has said, this has shaken up businesses where the owners have been comfortable, they've been successful and kind of coasting along. This is forcing business owners to reevaluate what they've been doing, what works, what doesn't work, and put them in an innovative and very creative mode of thinking. And I am keeping my fingers crossed that it is not just for a recovery, but it really is the new normal where business owners will stay abreast of trends in the marketplace to be able to pivot when necessary, because a lot of the pivots we will find coming out of this have been more profitable for businesses than their traditional business. And so I am very optimistic that we will head into a period, or we are in a period, where business owners are being more thoughtful, looking back at what worked, what didn't work, and we'll start to put down some plans over a 2-year, for a while we said, well, you don't know what's going to happen in 2 years or 5 years. I think we're right back there. You've got to start planning for a 2-year period to a 5-year period. And I think that's where we are. And that's what we are encouraging our clients to do. Take a look back, what worked, what didn't, what can you tweak, what's going to be brand new.
Ami, same question for you.
Yeah, Jeff, I think, one analogy I gave the other day is, again, I keep coming back to the point, I don't think you can talk about small businesses in one central bucket. So imagine if a tornado hit a neighborhood and for no rhyme or reason, one house on one side of the street got decimated and ripped apart and fell down, and the other house next to it had a window shattered. Some businesses have been decimated and fallen down, and they're going to have to figure out how to rebuild or do this. And other businesses had a window shattered, and new businesses are created because they're trying to rebuild the other businesses and trying to figure out how to get food or services to the people who were decimated, et cetera, et cetera. And there's no fairness to it either. And so it's sort of like the PPP round is for the houses that got hit, and it's not there for the houses that didn't get hit, which is okay. And I think the new normal is going to take a long time to find an equilibrium. And some people will feel liberated and some people will be scared. Will people travel as much? Ever? I used to travel for business all the time. I used to be on the road 70% of the time. I haven't been on an airplane in a year. I don't plan to go back. What's going to happen to those hotel rooms that I used to sit in, or those cars I used to rent, or the restaurants I used to eat out when I would go out, et cetera, et cetera. So it's going to take a long time to find the equilibrium, and we have to be patient and we have to support, but I think it's a responsibility of the entrepreneurs and the business owners, if you can, to invest and to try higher and to try grow. I challenge everyone who's doing okay. Make a plan. How can you hire 1 or 2 people this year? What can you do to do that? Because some of those people's houses got hit. Those jobs aren't coming back, as sad as it is, no matter how much PPP money you give them.
And Ami, do you think that some people there'll be like a false sense of financial security post-vaccination? With some, not all, obviously. No, you don't.
Some people will just go crazy. Some people went crazy with their PPP money. Okay. I mean, it's just going to take time to sort out the equilibrium, but there's many pieces of the issue. There's the underserved, there's the people who've been hit, and there are the people. Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
No, keep going.
There's the
you
people
froze
who've
on us
been,
a little bit there.
yeah, the people who've been hit, and then the people who are okay and who are thriving. There are many businesses that are e-commerce businesses are blowing up right now. Some jobs from the hotels are going to go to the e-commerce businesses. As hard as it is to accept.
Candace, what are your thoughts on this topic?
So I would share that we're going to return to a new economy. We're not going to be returning to what we experienced in the past. And I think that there are pros and cons to that. I think the pros are that small business owners in particular have had to be innovative, creative, and operate like a startup, no matter where they were at in their evolution. And I would encourage business owners to reflect on those experiences and leverage that startup mentality, that scale up mentality to really come up with strategic plans, continue to test, continue to evolve. It's going to require quite a bit of energy. So depending on where you're at in your life cycle of business, you may not necessarily want to continue pushing forward. And that's where we'll see mergers and acquisitions and exits, whether they be exits that they can monetarily, benefit from or not, will be dependent upon kind of the health of the business and how they've weathered the storm. But ultimately, I feel that this will make us stronger long term, but there are a lot of learnings here that we're going to need to support. And part of that is the infrastructure of financial literacy across the board, the necessity of planning, the importance of credit and liquidity, and all those factors that we presume business owners know, but they may just be really gifted at their particular trade. And so I think that those foundational pieces is where you'll see individuals investing time and energy through volunteerism. You're going to see technical assistance firms dedicating resources. I know that even, part of my time I carve out just for education and support because we need to invest in that next generation and also bring the business owners along that maybe have fallen behind and get them to a place where they can really be competitive and grow. And that's what's going to allow our economy to be a leading economy globally.
So Candace,
Jeff, if I can just chime in, sorry.
You want to say something?
Yeah, one thing I learned, I've been playing around in this new social media app called Clubhouse lately. And there's a lot of mentoring going on there, which is interesting. And I've learned that something I didn't realize, that there are, I think, hundreds or thousands, if not millions, of sole proprietors, or maybe like an Uber driver, who are entitled to PPP or were entitled to it and have no idea that they were entitled to it, because by just the very name PPP, they assume because they don't have a payroll, they're not entitled to it. And they never went and even tried to get the relief. And those are some of the people who've been the hardest hit and have nowhere to go for help. And that one tiny, it's not a tiny example because it's a big issue, but shows the vast diversity when we think about small businesses. Think about in some of the stats we read, you think about that Uber driver, and you think about the company with 300 or 500 employees, and they're completely different animals.
Well, I know, Marla, you're working on that, obviously, trying to educate there. Do you think that we've made that? Do you think lenders have done enough there? Do you think that moving forward, that can be more important, for lenders and for just in general, making sure that there'll be more of a focus on it moving forward, and maybe that's something that comes out of this.
Well, it has to be, and I think a part of the responsibility is with some of the employers, because the employers were so anxious about trying to keep the business afloat. They didn't have clarity that their 1099s could even apply for PPP. And so some of them were trying to include the 1099s in their PPP request. So I think a lot of responsibility lies with the employers to make sure they have adequate information where they can inform the people who are working for them. And I think now there's been a lot of information, so they're clear on W-2s versus 1099s, but there is still a market of sole proprietors who don't necessarily see themselves as sole proprietors, but they are. And so we do have to do a better job at getting that message out.
And independent contractors as well. It could be like someone who's has a house cleaning service, or a plumber, and they don't realize that they're eligible for the program, like Ami said. Candace, I wanted to get your thoughts on that. As a lender, do you think lenders have done enough? And what can lenders do moving forward to maybe connect more with those types of businesses?
I would share that I think there's a high level of awareness right now in the lending community and across the board that there is an audience of individuals that feel underserved and feel like they have not been outreached to. And I know that I can speak for WSFS, and that's an important part of our community. We see that as an audience that we have served and would like to enhance that relationship and grow that relationship. And that's through, really commitment. So it's education, it's outreach, it's participation. It's not just putting your brand out there on a board at an event. I mean, it's really being involved in every aspect of the community. But I think that foundationally, it's giving those individuals tools and resources and time to really understand how a financial institution can help them and what resources and tools we are best equipped to provide, and really networking them with other credible advisors, whether they be CPAs, whether they be technical organizations, volunteer organizations that really have the right tools in their toolkit to get them to that next place, and then strategically to follow up with that relationship. So I believe that there's going to be a big commitment across the financial institution community to really engage and enrich all individuals, all business owners, individuals of all different financial levels of success and wealth at this time. And frankly, that's what's going to allow our economy to continue to grow. It's for those individuals that have great ideas that haven't yet started a business, giving them the tools and resources to do so, and having them understand the essentials of building credit so they have access to capital. Really starting at those small incremental levels make our big seeds that will allow, really a forest to grow in time. So it's a long-term initiative. It's not going to be immediate gratification, but it's something that I know that I'm committed to, WSFS Bank's committed to, and I know other financial organizations, even reading ABA and other publications in the banking community, that this is a key area of focus. And I think PPP was a mirror to say, you know what, this particular audience needs additional support and help, and they are part of our communities. And as a community financial institution, we want to make sure we're there to help lead the charge.
Okay. So we've got about 5 minutes left. I wanted to ask one last question to each of you. It's the same question. And I'm going to start with Mitch on this. I always like to end with, always do something forward thinking. Tell me something I don't know. And it's moving forward. Let's say we're looking 6 months to a year from now. What's something with small businesses and the plight of small businesses maybe we're not talking about right now that maybe we'll be talking about in 6 months to a year? Mitch, what do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I love technology, and the technology continues to develop, and artificial intelligence continues to develop, and I'm pretty excited to see how that's going to add new industries and how it's going to affect, every business, including, a CPA firm. I just think that that we're poised for some significant changes that are going to be beneficial across many different industries. And, it certainly costs money to do that. And it takes time to do that. And and not everyone likes change, but, I think it's going to really help businesses to, continue to be profitable and to be able to compete.
Okay. And Marla, what are your thoughts on that? What do you see, 6 months to a year from now? Maybe something we're not talking about now that maybe we'll be talking about then.
Business owners, we found, are entrepreneurs to the core. And so whether they end up shutting down this particular business, they will re-emerge in the future with something else. And so I think that we will see a greater emphasis on business education, because as companies move into new areas, I think this has been a period of, it's been an eye-opening period that businesses will acknowledge, I don't know what I don't know, and I'm going to seek information where I can. So PIDC for years, although people think of us as a lender, we have been focused on business education for a long, long time. And that aspect is growing. And so I think you're going to see smarter business owners, not intuitively, but because they are going to seek out opportunities for business education.
Okay. All right. And Candace, what are your thoughts on that?
So I'm keeping an eye on kind of the evolution of the solopreneur and the social networking tools that bring business owners together. Obviously, like Mitch had shared, I see that there's going to be advancements in technology and adoption of technology. I think that real estate will pivot, but I have also watched kind of those incubator spaces and the cohorts, and how will that evolve in this new economy as we start to come back together? How will tech play into that? And ultimately, really, like, how will we build relationships in this new economy, since we all have been away from each other for, in a physical sense for the last year? Will we continue to be utilizing Zoom and other platforms in the same fashion that we are? So I think those are all highlights of things that we'll be talking more about, particularly as we return to this new normal.
Ami, you're my cleanup hitter. What do you have to say on this one?
Maybe I'll just give a bit of a plug, but I think it's just one iteration of the changes that are going on. But on Monday, we're going to launch a platform called Sba Ignite. It's a platform with an online platform with the goal of educating 1 million business owners and entrepreneurs around the country about the SBA. The training will be free. In exchange for, in lieu of paying, we're going to ask participants if they want to, or organizations who have training on there, to make donations to a local food group local nonprofit called Food Connect. What Food Connect does is they'll give $1,000 to a struggling restaurant, and that restaurant will take the money and produce 100 meals and send it to a homeless shelter in need. So it's just, I know I'm just talking about one thing, but there are going to be changes like that evolve from all this. And I hope that in the next year, we'll see big innovations coming through from all kinds of companies. And a year from now, we'll be talking about some big things that happened as a result of the pandemic that help really push the economy and the country forward.
Yeah, I have to say, I've covered a lot. I've covered PPP from start to finish, and I've been so amazed at how resourceful small business owners are, and how they just pivoted and reinvented themselves on the fly in really difficult circumstances. So, so we have no questions from the audience. So, I'm a positive person, so I'm going to take that as I asked all the questions they wanted to ask, and you guys answered everything that they wanted to answer. So let's just be positive about that. So I want to thank all of our guests today, all of our panelists. I want to thank Steve from earlier. It was a great discussion. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today and for our economic forecast. It's been 4 great weeks with this. And if you have any other questions, contact our events director, Gabrielle Frake. Many of you have met her. Once you leave the webinar, you're going to receive a survey about the presentation. We'd love to have your feedback about what you liked, what you didn't like. And again, I want to thank our sponsors, the Valley Forge Tourism and Convention Board, and our sponsors for the whole series, Employing Bricklayers Association, General Building Contractors Association, and Morgan Properties. And on behalf of the Philadelphia Business Journal, I want to thank you all for joining us today, and we hope to see you next week. Be safe, everyone.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Jeff. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Take care now. Thanks.
Take care.